Today I'm joined by Markus Reeves of Reeves Electro guitar pedals, based in Northamptonshire, United Kingdom. Thank you for making time for me today, Markus.
No worries. Thanks very much for inviting me, Kevin. It's a privilege to come on and chat with you.
One of the very first things I noticed about your website is that you create your products in very small batches of 10 to 15 units. And then once a particular pedal sells out, it's listed as out of stock on the website until you do another drop of that pedal. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the thought process behind that approach to your manufacturing.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I've tried lots of different kind of models, really, business models, and it's mainly based on my sanity. I'll be honest. Um, I was lucky enough to have a huge leap in my sales when the pedal show featured my products, and I ended up with months of work just because I had everything on sale and people could come on and order what they wanted. It was always on back order,
Mhm.
always produced on back order. So you'll order it and then there'll be a time to wait for it to come through. But the last time I did that, I opened my website for 24 hours called Waitlist Wednesday. I ended up with 7 months of work non-stop, 7 days a week, 8 to 12 hours a day.
Wow.
And while that's absolutely incredible, it was like Groundhog Day for me. And So I decided to manage that a little bit more. And it's an incredible thing for me that there is the passion for my stuff. That people are willing to come and buy them at and stuff sells out in minutes. But I have to keep the numbers low, otherwise I can't make them fast enough. It's
Mm. And I noticed that you mentioned, I think, on your website that your Super J one batch sold out in less than 10 minutes.
Oh well, that yeah, absolutely. I mean, usually it's sort of 3 to 5 minutes,
Wow.
they go in, and in fact it's caused me quite a headache because I'm in the process of moving my website because the last three drops the website actually crashed with people coming on and it just locked up during stuff was in their shopping carts and they didn't know whether it was sold or bought or
Oh, the
and it
website itself actually crashed.
yeah, absolutely, with the weight of traffic. And
Wow.
which yeah, it kind of I had lots of great messages from people saying, oh well, it's a brilliant advert for your products. And I'm like, well, yeah, but it's a very painful experience for me and people wanting to play my pedals. So I'm moving on to a much more powerful platform, which is the same platform that Thor PFX use, the Pedal Show use, and quite a few
Mhm.
other big sellers use. So hopefully it will be, a a different picture really on the next drop.
Okay.
So I've got my head busy in code at the moment.
Well, it's a great problem to have, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Now, I wanted to ask you about your 108 Master,
Mhm.
which seems to be inspired by the Range Master, but it seems to be a little bit more flexible than the original Range Master, particularly with the range control, and then you've got this bright switch.
Yeah, sure. Well, the um, so the range is basically it turns it from a treble booster to gradually through to a full range kind of full range boost. But it
Hmm.
just um, there's still, depending on what pickups you're putting through it and what amp you're using, there can still be some really high end presence.
Hmm.
Just because the way the circuit is built and it's built to push, that side of things. So yeah, the bright switch just kind of takes that sort of ice pickiness if you're getting that, and just
Hmm.
makes it much flexible pedal really. And there's some great one hit kind of one trick ponies pedals out there, and they don't really always suit a specific rig. And I've always tried to make pedals that while they've got a very specific kind of tone, you can still make that tone flexible just a little bit to work with different guitars and different rigs, really. So yeah.
And I noticed with that pedal in particular, it seems like the range allows you to go from full-blown treble boost into more of a, it's kind of just a, I wouldn't say it's a straight up overdrive, but it's more of an overdrive, but it
Yeah,
still
yeah,
has a distinctive sound,
yeah,
even in with the range all the way to the other end, if you know what I mean.
absolutely. It still has a kind of a nose, if you like, in that sort of upper mids, yeah. But it
Exactly.
just brings in more bottom end, and in fact, within the right rig, it gets fuzzy,
Hmm.
because there's so much. You can crank it right all the way around, and it lets a lot of bottom end in, and that pushes the bottom end really, and you get this kind of fuzz thing.
Now, the LuxMaster, it seems to be, I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. It seems to be at heart, it's a range master with a boost added and quite a bit more flexibility in terms of the ability to act upon a couple of the switches, the clipping switches that to go from a setting to kind of full boost. And you have the bias control. Is
Yeah,
that correct?
yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah. So the bias is really more to affect the amount of dirt in the signal, because the treble boosters are not or range masters are not um, a clean boost really. They've got
Hmm.
quite a lot of grit to them on their own, and so the bias kind of takes that down to almost a clean boost. And there's just lots of uh, how can I put it? Just lots of flexibility, even more flexibility around. How there's a second switch which just puts everything or each pot wide open,
Hmm.
so it's at its max basically. So you can select when you hit the foot switch, you can select whether you want that pot to go to max or not. So you can get some quite flexible tones out of that. I'm probably going to be doing a V2 of that with some slightly different options actually, because I use them myself, and I've found there's some options on it when I'm out playing live, that don't really cut the mustard for me. Really, they're not quite. There's other things that I could do that would probably make it a even more flexible pedal. So, but at the moment, I'm keeping what they are under wraps.
Okay. Now, I noticed, well, I came across the 108 first and watched your demo and immediately fell in love with it. And then I
Okay.
came across the LuxMaster and then I started thinking to myself, if I bought a LuxMaster, am I getting a 108 Master with just more control, or is it really kind of a different pedal? Is it kind of either or is it really kind of the same engine with more control with the
No,
LuxMaster?
absolutely. It's a 108 master, absolutely. With
Okay.
yeah, and you can dial in everything else as well. So
Okay. So if I love the 108 Master, I wouldn't lose anything by buying the LuxMaster.
you're only going, yeah, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
You get its brothers and sisters as well.
Okay. And of course you realize my rent will not be paid this month because I've already got my, my wallet out for these things. The demos are just great. So then the Leo is your tribute to the American Tweed sound. And I thought it
Absolutely.
was great. You've got these three voices. You got this 5-watt champ, your 12-watt deluxe, and then
Yeah,
your 40-watt twin sound. So three different really feels for that pedal.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I'm a massive Tweed fan. I've played Tweeds for 20 odd years, probably. Really,
Mhm.
I yeah, Fender all the way for me. Um, but I'm never Blackface. I've always felt were just didn't have the width and the kind of, they don't fill a room for me as much as the Tweed. I don't know why.
Mhm.
There's about that Tweed sound that You know, I mean, they're slightly quicker to break up, but yeah, I just love them. I've actually just ordered a custom tweed super, which is a not particularly well known tweed amp. It's like a half a basement, mini basement.
Huh.
It's a 2x10, 6L6s, and about 30 odd watts. Um, yeah, and
And
that's
that one comes 210 stock. That's the normal configuration for that one.
absolutely. Joe Bonamas has just recently been talking. I don't know whether he's released it or he's been talking about releasing a a signature model because it's one of
Oh.
his favorite Fender amp, favorite
Hmm.
Fender tools. So yeah, if there's a man that knows what a tweed sound like, then it's Bonamassa, isn't it?
Yeah,
So
I feel like the 210 is so underrated. I love the sound of a 210 combo.
yeah, absolutely. It's yeah, there's something about it, not just for the fact that you know it makes loading so much easier because they're not so heavy, but they are. People always think, oh, the smaller speakers, they're not going to be, you know, I'm going to lose bottom end.
Yeah, not
It,
true.
it's not at all true. You
Yeah,
lose a lot of the bottom end that you can't really hear. That really kind of sub stuff and the stuff that clashes with your bass player anyway. So you
right.
kind of need that, but you know, and a lot of time when people describe tones, they say, "Oh, it's got a much more focused bottom end." When
Hmm.
they mean it's got less bottom end, you know, it's kind of actually genuinely Tweed Super has a much more focused end and the low end in those because of the 210s
Hmm.
kind of does cut, you know. So yeah, yeah, 210 is a great.
I
I'm kind
noticed
of
in the Leo, there's no tone control, and I was kind of scratching my head if there was a particular reason why you didn't add any kind of tone shaping on that pedal.
I guess it's just the fact that obviously building them point to point. Well, there's lots of reasons really. Building them point to point are uh, obviously every component adds quite a lot of work. You know, it's not
Hmm.
like you know if it's a PCB build, you know, an extra feature doesn't add a great amount of work, whereas with point to point it does. And the Leo is quite a complex pedal to build as it is,
Hmm.
and I I toyed with the idea of you know when I was designing it with putting a tone control in. And then I always kind of found, it doesn't matter what amp I was putting it in, I wasn't really going far away from midday on the tone
Hmm.
control. So I thought, well, there's a lot of features on there already, and I don't want people to get this thing and kind of get option paralysis.
Right.
So I just kind of left in the the bright and the normal channels,
Hmm.
really kind of a tonal option, and it seems to work. People, you know, are enjoying it.
Yeah, actually, I should correct myself because you do have the bright and normal control, and then the high Z, low Z settings, right, on that pedal.
Well, it mimics the tweed input basically. So you've got yeah, you like say you've got the high and low and the bright and normal channels are just on a toggle instead.
Right.
Um, so yeah, hopefully it will. If you know if there's people out there that haven't run a tweed, um, hopefully it will give them an idea of you know how a tweed works.
I thought it was interesting that you mentioned for that particular pedal that it likes to be in the front of your chain.
Yeah, yeah. I test them with some pedals that are typically you know difficult to get on with as far as you know other pedals in your chain. OCD particularly Mark One OCD, and they've got a real and some electro harmonics pedals as well have got
Hmm.
very aggressive buffers in them.
Okay.
Um, so it doesn't deal particularly with a really aggressive buffer.
Hmm.
Um, and so I kind of I'd rather err on the side of caution when I'm
Mm,
advising people how to use it. I would say, it, in my experience, it may be best there, but try it everywhere else because everybody's rig is different.
yeah.
Uh, so yeah, that's kind of. But it does. I mean, I've had it at the end of a chain before, a fairly short chain, and it takes it fine. So yeah,
Now the other pedal I wanted to ask you about is your Zoe, which is the Zonk Machine.
yes,
Now I see the swell is the volume control, and that makes sense to me. But the drift, I thought to myself, that's interesting because you describe it as a kind of combination of fuzz and bias at the same time.
yeah, yeah. There's so the drift control is a kind of mimicking the drifting over time of
Mhm.
some of the particular components in the pedal, and basically the drift is mimicking a small network in there changing value. And then I've actually there's a kind of a version 2 that I've been doing that's instead of having a toggle for the texture, I've put a dial in there,
Mhm.
um, which also that's a more, how can I put that? Well, that's a more what you'd imagine a conventional bias for. So with the two, you can get some really, because the Zonk machines are much misunderstood tone, because there are so few of them, and a lot of them they all varied. Back in the day,
Mhm.
there wasn't, when they were making these things, there wasn't really a definitive fuzz tone. They were still breaking ground with these
Yeah.
things. And now we look back now, and we've got the selection of fuzzes that have survived to
Mhm.
take a tonal palette from, and B, kind of the ones that survived are the ones that everybody likes. They might not actually be the definitive sound. It's just the ones that have got through because people have gone, I like
Mhm.
them. So long story short, basically I these two controls, you can get pretty much most of the Mark II Zonk sounds that I've heard.
Okay.
So from really raspy, kind of, like playing a trumpet kind of thing, that really trumpety sort of fuzz sound, to
Yep.
much fatter, smoother, but still with lots of sort of rich harmonic overtones.
Okay.
It's
Now, when I look at your product line, I started to realize that it's really focused on fuzz, overdrive, and treble boost.
yeah,
And I just wanted to ask you if you could talk a little bit about why the focus on really just the kind of different flavors of drive as opposed to getting into reverb and flange
cool.
and chorus and things like that.
I'm I'm a pretty straight ahead player. I don't put much fluff around my tone, and I've all, I'm building the pedals that I really like. That's it. I read or I watched an interview with Rick Rubin recently, and he said, your whatever your art thing is,
Hmm.
be your own audience. If you do your art thing to please other people, you will very quickly get to the point where you're second guessing what to do next.
Hmm.
Whereas if you're your own audience and you do things that you love, um, you'll never have to second guess what to do next. And if you're
Hmm.
lucky, people will like what you like. And I've been
Right.
lucky, basically. So yeah, I'd be really surprised if I ever made a modulation or a reverb or anything like that, because I don't use them. A bit of amp reverb, um, and that's it.
Oh,
I
that
mean, I
makes
play.
sense. So you didn't start out saying, "Hey, I'm going to make a pedal company with all different kinds of pedals." You started out saying, "I'm going to make pedals that I would use."
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I fell over all this. To be honest, it fell in my lap. I didn't. I kind of, well. I kind of planned. I thought I got to the point about 5 or 6 years ago. I thought I've been doing this for 20 years or more. I fixed a fuzz face of a friend in 1992. And I had to go to the library to find out how to read components and all that sort of stuff because there was nothing else.
Right.
And that kind of got me, and I slowly got going. And anyway, so 5 or 6 years ago, I thought to myself, I really need to do something with this. See if I
Mm,
can actually make a thing of it. So I kind of got set up, got the website going, and it was trickling along okay, but
mm,
it wasn't really setting the world alight. And then, like as I mentioned earlier on, that pedal show featured my stuff. Well, Brian Wampler actually um, reposted a photograph of mine. Then Dan from the pedal show saw it and said, "We need to talk,"
mm,
and that was that. And I that was right at the beginning of the pandemic.
mhm.
Um, so it's a kind of a perfect storm, really. Everybody was at home going stir crazy.
Right.
I had just been, well, I was put on furlough to begin with. Then I was made redundant from my company, given a chunk of cash because I'd been there for a decade or so,
Mm,
and that gave me the confidence to kind of go, well, I'm not going to look for any other work. I should just do this.
mm.
And, it's the rest is kind of history, really. So I'm blessed every day. Honestly, it is it genuinely is. This is my dream. You know,
Now, your pedals have a particularly kind of retro feel about them as far as the graphics. Um, who designs your graphics and who actually manufactures them, and what was the inspiration for the kind of retro feel of your pedal?
um, well, I do all the artwork. So and it's I'm a big fan of the Art Deco and Art Nouveau period, and
Mm,
yeah, they're the artwork are kind of they're mashups of various pieces of Art Nouveau illustration and bits and pieces that I found and kind of taken. Or like that border, I like
mhm,
that, this, that, and the other, and yeah. So I just kind of take them, and I worked as well, I had a print company back in the early 2000s. I've been a screen printer since I left school. I was a screen printer for about 15, 20 years.
mhm,
Um, so that kind of everything, and then I went on to be an art studio manager. So got into working Photoshop and Illustrator and all that sort of stuff. So everything that I've been through, there's a reason we all do what we do. It's
mhm,
because we're kind of comfortable in that pocket, and all the skills that I've learned over the time led me to go, well, I can do my artwork. I can print these.
mhm.
So I do the artwork and I do the printing, and they're acid etched as well, which I also do just there.
Okay.
So I mean, literally, this is a 12 by 8 foot workshop. I the raw enclosures come in, um, everything comes in, and the finished item goes out. I don't outsource anything.
Mm. And they I have to say they definitely stand out. When I look at your pedals, they have a look
Yeah,
that's quite distinctive from other pedals, and they all are very interesting look to them.
yeah. I mean, I'm. It's as much for me about um, how things look as it is how they sound. To be honest, I'm very visual as well as listen to things.
Hmm.
Uh, and like I think Mick Taylor from I know I keep mentioning them, but from that pedal show, he says, when you're buying a guitar, the one thing you must remember, or the three things you must remember: what it looks like, what it looks like, and what it looks like. And his point is that it doesn't matter what it's like. If you look at that thing and you go, "Oh, I want to play that,"
Right.
look at that, how cool. That really gets me going. I want to play it. You will love it.
Yeah.
And I guess it's the same with pedals. There are certain people who are like that. We're not all robots, so everybody, is different. Some people like you know, a bare bones basic kind of setup, and they're not bothered about the way it looks, but there are other people that is their mojo, and they like that thing, and that's what brings that spark from inside them
Yeah.
out. And if my pedals do that because you've got that on there, and you kind of in the back of your head, you're like, I've got that chrome plated V8 under my bonnet. It might look like a getaway car on the outside, but what's going on underneath,
Right.
and that's typically my sort of customer. So yeah, bring it on.
Well, I have to tell you that I always enjoy opening up a pedal, particularly a pedal that I like, and I taking a look on the inside. And there have been some pedals I've purchased where I thought, oh wow, this was really well built. I can see, just the way it was constructed is great. Yours, the pictures on your website, it's something completely different. And I say that because you can see it's point to point, first of all. I mean, it's just you can almost follow the signal path from looking at the wiring. And
Yeah,
it's really like artwork. I mean, I've never seen anything like it.
thank you.
It's very different, and but the thing it's not funny but unusual is that it's not for show. The pedal actually works, but the way you do the wiring and the way you organize the wires and the way you connect everything, to me, it's artwork, and it's very obvious how passionate you are about it. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. It's very impressive.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah. It's yeah. I mean, no sane man would want to really get into this as a business. To be honest, it's uh, uh, it's a very. Luckily, I'm a very kind of. It's my zen. Building these is my kind of zen time, really. You
Mhm.
know, um, people say to me, "What do you listen to?" And while I'm building, and very often it's crazy ambient stuff like Tibetan sound bowls and meditation music and stuff, because I really get really in the zone when I'm doing this. And
Mm.
yeah, it's pretty intense building them, and I do it in short bursts, a couple of hours at a time.
Mhm.
Then I have a break, and obviously my Instagram is something that I am very active on. So I'll go and do some content, and kind of mix it up and come back to it. Yeah, it's I'm very very passionate about these things, and yeah, lucky that everybody else seems to like it.
Well, the last question I wanted to ask you is when you wake up in the morning, when you reach for a guitar, what guitar do you reach for? What pedal do you play through? I think I have a feeling what the answer to that question is. And what amp do you play through?
So Telecaster, end of story.
Okay.
Uh, Probably into a Tweed Deluxe. I played through a Tweed Deluxe for the last, wow, well, I've had that current one for about 15 years. I'm a rare, satisfied guitar player. I'm not on a real mission to find another amp. As
Okay.
far as pedals are concerned, with the Tweed Deluxe, probably a Zevex SHO, just a straight boost.
Oh, it's so funny. That is one of my favorite pedals of all time because
Absolutely.
it to me it's not like an overdrive. It just turns your amp. It's like having a preamp section of your amp or something like that.
Yeah, they're brilliant. And I don't know whether you play tweeds or not, but yeah, if you try it into a tweed, it's just another world.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
I mean, I usually play into a deluxe reverb most days or a Music Man, but it's their
yeah,
SHOs are amazing.
yeah, absolutely. And if I'm playing into something slightly cleaner, it'd be a broadcast, Hudson broadcast.
Oh,
Uh,
okay. Interesting pedal.
yeah, really brilliant, brilliant pedal. A lot of people play them with the kind of quite a lot of the bass, but I like them as that. almost like not like a treble booster, but set so it
Mhm.
cut quite a lot of bass.
Okay.
Uh, and that's my kind of you know, bang, I'm here kind of you don't need much more volume, but it just changes the shape of the EQ, and you're out
Right.
there, you know.
Mhm.
And so yeah, that's a great pedal. Yeah.
Well, Marcus, thank you so much for taking time to join me
No
today.
problem.
It's a
No,
really pleasure to meet you, to get to know you, and to get to learn more about your product line and your company, and in particular, the manufacturing process and your approach to how you, build your pedals in batches, but to really get into some of the details of the particular pedals we talked about. So, I really appreciate you making time and just getting to talk a little bit today. So, thank you.
thank you. Take it easy.